In today's video, I'm going to talk about why higher interest rates is the time bomb for the housing market. Did you know that the Federal Reserve has increased the rates consecutively for the last 3 times? In fact, the last raise was 0.75%, which is quite a bit higher considering they've already increased it last 2 times. The Federal Reserve, after all, is trying to control the consumer demand, not just for houses, but for cars and for furniture and groceries, because the demand is out of control. Inflation is at 8%. It could rise, but right now it's holding at 8%. And the only way to control this inflation, this high consumer demand, is by raising the interest rate. So let's see what the impact is on the housing market, which it will have it for sure. The current interest rate just a few days ago was as high as 6.62%. They've been over 6% for the last few months. That has been the highest in the last 14 years. So it will definitely have an impact on the housing sales. By the way, if you're watching my channel for the first time, I'm Mike Patel with First Team Real Estate in Anaheim Hills, Orange County. Thanks for watching. And while you are here, I'd like to suggest to you to subscribe to my channel. I come up with videos, updates, trends, and the real estate scoop every week, sometimes even twice a week. So please come back and visit, and please subscribe. So we all know the housing prices are very high. Add to that higher interest rate. So what does that do to the housing sales? Well, according to the National Association of Realtors, for the last 7 months consecutively, the number of home sales have gone down in the last 7 months every month. And I'm sure higher interest rate has a lot to do with it. Of course, there's a shortage of inventory, so that has all to do with it. And of course, buyers are fed up with higher prices, so they're just hitting the brakes. They're saying, I'm just gonna wait. I'm not gonna go with the multiple bids. And they're just taking a pause. So the combination of buyer fatigue, of multiple offers, total seller control, higher interest rate, and low inventory has caused the number of sales to be down. In fact, according to the National Association of Realtors, last year, 2021, home sales were approximately 6.1 million homes sold, and the projection for 2022 was about 5.4. That's almost 600,000 less. But as of last week, when the rates went up again, third consecutive time, very significantly, that number may drop. Let's see what happens end of the year. So hopefully you'll come and watch me again. As I mentioned earlier, inflation is out of control, consumer demand is out of control, prices are out of control. So Jerome Powell from Federal Reserve is obviously trying to control this consumer demand, higher prices, and the housing market. So what he's trying to do, and according to the quote, Jerome Powell is trying to reset the housing market. Let me read a quote from Jerome. So there was a big imbalance between supply and demand. Housing prices were going up at an unsustainably fast level. So the deceleration in housing prices that we are seeing should help bring prices more closely in line with the rents and other housing market fundamentals. We have already seen the impact of high interest rate on the housing sales. According to NAR, National Association of Realtors, which I mentioned earlier, number of home sales are down by 19% because of the high prices. Let me give you a short story on the impact of interest rate on the purchase from the consumers. Now, we all know that when the rates go high, affordability goes down. Less people can afford it, less people can qualify, so less people can buy the house. So let's look at the reverse, and then I'll come back to the impact of high interest rate. I sold a home back in 2021 to a client of mine. They were looking for a house in the $800,000 range. The rates at that time was about 4.5 to 4.75% interest rate. So the payment on an $800,000 house with a 20% down at that time at 4.75% was $41.66 per month. We kept on looking for homes, could not find it, got beaten out by multiple offers. Yes, at that time there were 10, 15, 20 multiple offers in the first 2 days. So we took a month off, and lo and behold, in the meantime, the interest rate dropped to 2.5% towards the end of 2021. So when we talked to my client and we re-talked to the lender, we found out that the same client who could afford $800,000 at about 4.75% rate, a house for $800 to $850, now could afford to buy a house up to 1.1 at 2.5%. So guess what we did? We made an offer in November of 2021 on a house that was about $1 million or a little bit more than $1 million. My buyers were lucky enough with multiple offers to get that house for 1.1. And guess what their payment was on that house at 2.5%? The payment was $45,000 52 at 2.5%, 20% down on a 1.1 house. So the same buyer who was buying a house for $800,000, about $4,200 a month payment, bought a house for 1.1 because the mortgage payment only went up by $300 to $400. So that's how powerful the low interest rates are. So let's look at how powerful they are with the higher interest rate. They are even more powerful, and I'll give you another example. So let's look at the reverse impact, which is what happens when the rates go up. Let's take an average home. A median home price nationally as of quarter 2 2022 is around $440,000. So if we take a house at $440,000, put a 10% down at 3% interest rate, just as an example, the payment comes out to $2,300 a month. This is principal and interest. Now let's pretend, or let's say the interest rate is 6%. Well, as of today, it is 6%. So the $440,000 house with a 10% down, same house, same down payment, but the interest rate is 6%, the payment jumps to $3,004. That's almost $700 more payment for the same house. So in 1 or 2 or 3 months, your payment can be as high as $700 a month. Now let's take the scenario, and I was talking to a lender and a title officer and an escrow officer. I actually played golf with them to learn more about real estate, and what they're saying is that the rates will still go up. Generally, to control the inflation, the rate may have to match the inflation rate, may have to match the interest rate. So in this case, if the interest rate, let's say, is 8% and the inflation is at 8%, that may be a good match to bring it down. So let's assume that calculation purposes, we use 7.5% instead of 8% because my calculator does not have an 8% interest rate right now, only 7.5. So the same house at $440,000 at 10% down at 7.5%, the payment, principal and interest jumps to $3,400 a month. So at 3%, that house was $2,300 a month. At 7.5%, it's $3,400 a month. Almost $1,000 more for the same house, which means the high interest rate knocks out the affordability, knocks out a lot of buyers from the housing market, and that'll slow the demand. So high interest rate will do its job. It will reduce the payments, the number of sales, and I'm assuming it'll slow down the economy. Next few months are critical. Let's see what happens. Of course, the number of home sales is going to drop significantly, but even with the high inflation rate and even with the higher interest rate, the prediction from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and MBA and CoreLogic, even with these high rates, they are predicting that the house prices will level off or stay, but they're not going to drop drastically. Let's wait and see. Again, thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe and share.